Oh, there it is. Oh, now it's working.
Okay, Josh's gonna teach us stuff. Take one.
Take one.
Uh-oh.
And you'll have to speak up, remember,
Ah,
and share your screen.
don't know how to share my screen. I have not used Zoom for like 30 years.
On the bottom, where the share screen, or alt, that's.
Actually, it's Alt F4. Be World of Warcraft. How do you join a guild in WoW? Alt F4. Alt F.
Where'd he go? Okay, just done. Let's go. Install.
So I changed some BIOS settings on my laptop to hopefully make my laptop use less battery still. So we'll see if Zoom crashes or if it doesn't.
I fixed my battery problem with a single kernel config.
Yeah, yeah. However, you did, but because Microsoft uses multiple sources of configuration, I had to disable hardware acceleration on the Windows settings, then on the browser settings.
Tell you what, why don't you put stuff into Zulip already, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll call this
hopefully
technical
it'll
difficulties
use this battery.
and move on.
So that means that uses.
If you can share, it'll show up. Share my screen. Whoop. It'll show up like this green thing with an arrow on it there. Yeah. So Dan, do you want to, since it's a housekeeping thing, do you want to talk about that thing at Iowa State, or do you want me to? Yeah. Do you want me to close my share? Do you want me to stop sharing my screen? Or I can. Oh, hang on. It is possible for two people to share. I'll just stop mine. There you go.
So we got this Peterson for. And it's a thing at Iowa State, October 12th. It's basically all day and is in Cooper Hall, so basically the same place where we'd have our competitions. And join us for our family-friendly Youth Cyber Summit, where members of our communities will be showcasing their cybersecurity knowledge, connect with our presenters, and enjoy various activities at our booths and sessions. Lunch will be provided. Key part.
That's what I thought. Regardless of the quality of the presentation.
They said.
No.
10 to 2.
Yeah. That's.
You're thinking of the competition.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, that's actually
now, this is all the information we have. We don't have here, but so they basically got 4 work sessions, and each session there's different things you can go to. Oh, and they're all the same.
Yeah.
So you can go to all 4. I have no idea what any of these are other than the names. So Cybercade, interactive security demos, cyber career panel, exhibition fair. And so that's an optional self-guided tour of the
Student Innovation Center.
Okay. So this is what we know. This is all we know. And I really have absolutely no idea. I mean, I think for most of from this group, many of these demos are going to be pretty basic. However, being able to talk to cyber career, if you're thinking about a career in cybersecurity and that sort of thing, this actually might be worthwhile. Talk to people and you know, we're homeschoolers, internships are a thing, so that might be something that you wanna, talk about. I have no idea what a cybercade is. No clue.
We may ask see, I can never remember the name of it.
Yes,
The
Discord.
Discord.
Yes.
He just told me like
Talk to Doug.
half an hour. Yeah, we may talk to Iowa State to find out more about the cybercade. The interactive security demos might be interesting. I mean, even if it's one of the platforms we looked at, we didn't get through any of them, right? So
Right.
even if it's juice shop and they have somebody there to help or something, it could be fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
juice shop, as I
So-
called mine.
You know, from my perspective, if Iowa State is a school that's kind of on your radar and, something related to computer science is on your radar as a possible major, this might not be a bad thing to attend, especially since you could then just go up there and maybe take a tour of Iowa State, like a college tour, and do that at the same time. You're driving out there once, get a feel for things. Although it might be worthwhile to go as a group. I do believe this is a Saturday, which means if a lot of people were going to it, we probably wouldn't meet that Saturday. But if a lot of people want to go to it, we could actually make it an outing.
Sure.
But
Trip.
you know, what do you guys think? I realize I've given you almost no information.
There's food.
There's
Say less.
Exactly.
Yeah, it isn't sad.
yeah,
What's the date
the 12th.
of October? I have to look, I told you there are 3 days that we can't meet here. It'd be really cool if that was one.
Oh, yeah.
But I looked at the other room, it's like, we're not fitting in there. I booked a different room for 3 Saturdays, because just FYI to everybody else, because this one was already booked.
So. All right, if your
Yeah.
schedule allows, who's interested, show of hands.
Sure.
Okay, well, pretty much everybody. All right, tell you what, since there is an RSVP. Any chance you could look at your schedules and by say like Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll make a thing on
Zula.
Zula.
See, we got each other.
Yeah. And if everybody's doing, do you guys want to think about carpooling or rather than making every parent drive?
Yeah, so
Could be
So,
discussed.
I already checked my schedule. I am able to show up. However, due to the fact that my van is not nearly aerodynamic due to the fact that it's missing a front bumper. I would love if I can carpool. I totally can. I totally can make the drive solo, but I would love the opportunity to carpool instead.
Iowa State is 2 hours.
2 hours-ish.
Yeah, so
2 hours
technically
is
this would
not
be,
that bad.
this
of a
would be
drive.
8 to 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and put that on, and, are able to go, then we'll figure out the carpool. We will.
Yeah.
Are interested. in
Yeah.
that.
Definitely.
I mean, 2 cars, I mean, I got a van.
Yeah.
Okay, so. 2 people is fun. With 4 people.
Come on, think big.
Is that?
Think big. How many can you really fit in back?
Well, I got my own seat since I'm driving, so. Y'all can pile in, huh?
A law.
We got work for it.
Can you go like this?
I probably figure we just meet here.
That way, yeah.
All right, so I will do that. And I'm gonna put that in admin file, let's see.
Okay.
Adios, my dudes.
I'm
Oh,
going
that
to be
made me so
temporarily
sad.
leaving the meeting and then relaunching Zoom as I change the graphics card that Zoom is gonna be running on.
All right.
Don't hot swap graphics cards, man. Tried that. It doesn't end well.
Yeah, my countless blue screens can't. Can't account for the fact that it's a bad idea. Machine just
We'll see.
doesn't give you anything.
Amazing what you
All right, machine
can.
crashed.
Hot.
There goes the next 30 minutes of error log searching.
Okay. Today, the rest of the time we've got, we will be looking at this diagram that I plopped into Zulip. Everybody able to take a peek at that thing at least? Who didn't take a peek at it? Let's just call ourselves out. Who did?
Take a peek at.
Oh, there's a watch that the meetings channel, guys. Tell me I put it there.
It was in there, yeah.
Ah, so let's see.
Hey
Whoops,
guys,
wrong
we're
one.
not gonna be meeting today, so.
Yeah. This one. See, this is one of the
Oh, the
channels you have to
diagram.
watch. Yeah, this diagram. Did anybody?
If anyone has this on their phone, I have a guide on how to set up notifications on that.
Yeah, that's true. So this is the kind of thing we have to learn at the beginning. So you know, he said, let's have Zulip installed so you get notifications. Here's something. So this is under the meetings and homework channel, which is one you need to watch. Hey,
I just connected on my phone.
that's all right. Oh, I could still hear myself, but I was tiny. So it's going to be this diagram we take. Oh, that one doesn't work. I remember that. Can you? That's okay.
Zoom's already.
The little thumbnail in Zulip doesn't work, but this will, because it's a link to GitHub. And that did not open the image.
Are you also taking the Network Plus? Kirk
I
class
tried
as
to
well.
do
I was
this.
going to, but
Oh,
they kicked me
probably
out.
here.
Never. Yeah, they refused to give it back.
Okay, so this is one of these times it's probably not going to be as helpful to look at it up there as it will be in Zoom. But this is our diagram. It's like talking in a baseball stadium. This is fun. This is a diagram that humbly suggests, as you can see from the title, how the internet works. All in a 8x15 diagram. And so what's going to happen is this happy person over here, they're happy in spite of the fact that they're using a MacBook. But they're still speaking Doge in 2024 because I made this that's the last revision, I guess, is in 2022. And they want to go to Reddit, and Reddit is way the heck over here. And so we want to look at how this happens, because what we're going to do, and there's a lot of information here. So we're not trying to become expert in any of this. Okay. The idea here is we want to sort of set the table. These are the kinds of things we need to talk about the rest of the year. Okay. And we'll take a little bit of time to talk about routing, because we want to get the idea of how routing works in everybody's mind, because it either clicks for you right away, which is true for like 5% of everybody, or you need to hear it over and over. So we'll take some time there. And it is color coded, by the way. It's I should make these lines bold and put a legend. I realized like this morning, this should have a legend that says yellow is DHCP and all that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Green is ARP. ARP. So to seal, ARP. Yeah.
You're the
Huh?
You're the one.
I used it when I was a database trainer too. but it was for or. Are we recording this? Oh my gosh.
It's on the record now.
Can't get away from it.
It will forever haunt you.
I already forever haunt me. So anyways, so green is basically a decision tree that the client goes through we could call the client Mac, I guess. And then yellow is for a protocol called DHCP. Red is for a protocol called DNS, and bluish purpley, whatever it is for HTTPS, basically. Although it's still doing routing along the way. So there's DNS and there's DNS involved for these other guys, but it's basically HTTPS.
Yeah, that purple one is a wide variety of protocols smashed into one line.
Yeah, for this guy though, for a client, it's HTTPS.
Yeah,
So yeah,
HTTP is so much better. It's so much secure. Man, come on.
open source is all about transparency, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
See?
So,
Transparency. That's what I like.
and I've got some IP addresses on here. And first thing I want to do talking about our client Mac is that every host, see, there's the first word, host. What's a host? Returners or newers? What's the technical definition of host? Anybody remember?
A computer,
Technical definition.
With
network connection,
and
an IP.
an IP address. A host is anything, not necessarily a computer, but that's fine. Anything on the network, anything on an IP network that has an IP address. So this is a host. You can tell because I've got it connected with green squiggly lines to a network, but it has an IP address, and that address is 10.0.2.11. I don't know if you can see it up there, but hopefully you've got it. You can see it. Well, you've seen it before.
I mean, I know it's
Yeah.
and because it's
Yeah.
the private.
And that's the next thing I want to mention is that I don't know if you know this, but that this kind of IP address with 4 numbers separated by dots is the IP version I grew up with, IPv4. We ran out of these addresses. There weren't enough of them. They did a great job. They created this protocol in 1960 something, and it lasted until 2000 something. So they did have some foresight. There's now an IPv6, which has an address that I think is 128 bits long. And there are enough addresses available in IPv6 so that every man, woman, and child on Earth can have the same number of addresses for themselves. I can have the number of addresses equivalent to the number of carbon atoms in a metric ton of coal. So we won't run out, probably.
You better not.
And I don't know why it's a metric ton. What are these Brits
Well,
trying to do to us?
Well, the issue at that
Those
point
metrics
is
is easy to
actually
work
switching
with.
over to IPv6 from IPv4,
Yeah.
which is smaller than 6. Exactly.
It is.
It's really complex.
This is a hit and run. This is a hit and run talk. So that's all we'll say about that. This diagram's IPv4. And underneath that, you probably need your monitor to see this, but there's 2 representations of the same thing, something called a subnet mask. And you've probably seen this, like if you run in Windows, if you run ipconfig, you'll see this representation of a subnet mask. In this case, it's 255.255.255.0. And down here is a different address. It's for my virtualization system, subsystem, 255.255.240.0. And so this one actually has the same as the first one I showed you, 3 255s and a 0. It also says /24. And if the subnet mask is 255.255.0, the CIDR will always be /24. I've got the CIDR wrong. It should be 10.0.2.0/24, by the way. But this works.
It's not.
Yeah.
Cedar, no.
It does in our network policy repos. I can tell you I've learned by experimentation. Well, the PR just got kicked back to me. They're like, what did you try? So if an IPv4 address is 32 bits long, 32 ones and zeros. And it's so these four numbers 10.0.2.11, they're each 8 of those bits. And without like drawing it out right now, 8 bits can represent the numbers 0 to 255. And so the subnet mask says 255 in the first number. That means all the bits are on, they're all ones. Okay. The second one, 255, that means all of those are on. So now we got 16 ones. And the third part, 255, that means all of those are on. That's 24 ones. And then no more ones because it's a 0. That's where that /24 comes from. It's just telling you how many of the bits belong to the network. So the first 24 bits are the network, and the last 8 just say which host on the network. That doesn't make sense. We'll show this once. I said we're gonna take one.
Yeah. We have the whiteboard there. We can always
Yeah.
do the little
Okay, if you guys turn around for a second. Okay. I think I was gonna try to do it.
Yeah.
Code.
Yeah.
You got binary numbers?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Need one little primer? Okay. So, you know how with decimal numbers, right? Use powers of 10. Okay, so like I happened to notice today we have a drawer. That's hard to say. So so yeah, a number like 1, 2, 3. This is 10 to the 0 ones, right? And this is this is messy. This is 10 to the 1, so tens, and that's 10 to the 2, right? So 100, 2 tens, 3 ones, right? So if you have a number in binary, like 1, 0, 1, 0, this is 2 to the 0. None of those. 2 to the 1. Right? 2 to the 2, 2 to the 3. So that's nope. It's so much easier to do math this way. I taught my kids
It is indeed
binary math.
It's also much easier learning binary.
Well,
Like
we started off with, why do we have 10 digits? And look, 10 digits.
Unless you count 2023 on
Then we
your
said-
fingers.
Then we said, what if we were from another planet?
Why?
We only had one finger.
Pretend it's
Okay.
bigger than.
So we got none of those. We got 1, 2, we got none of those, and we've got an 8. So this is 9. Right? It's weird for me to do it that way. I do it wrong. That looks right.
Nope.
So
That's right.
so when you have an IP address, like 10.5.6.20, whatever. These are all represented internally as bits. And so the 10 is going to be an 8 and a 2. So 8, 4, 2, 0. It's got, right? So that's 10. The 5 is going to be a 4 and a 1. 8, 4. Is that right? The 6 is a 4 and a 2. 8, 4. Sorry, 2.
Yeah, doing binary math in your head is
Anyways,
yes. Okay,
And 20 is going to be a 16.
that's why we write. Oh,
Four
yes.
is 0.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
This one.
Yep, that fine.
Thank you. And the 20 is a 16 and a 4. 0, 2, 4, 8, 16. And I need 3, 1. Does that look right?
Yep.
Should have known not to do 6.
I was like, why didn't you do 1?
I know 3. If you turn all these on, it's 255. 128 plus 64 plus 32 plus 16 plus 8 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1.
You're basically
That part's easy.
just counting.
They're all powers.
It sounds easy.
So
Most
if
of
you
them.
say the subnet mask is 255, that 255, that 255, that is 0. It's the same thing as saying all ones, all ones, all ones, no ones. And that means that whatever's in this part of the address, in this case, well, in this case, the 255, or sorry, the 10.5.6, that means that's the network part of the address. And this 20 is the host. And so we haven't talked about this yet, but anything that's connected to your network that you can see that has this part of the address the same, that's your network. So if you see a 10.5.6.8, that's on your network, on your subnet, that's on your network. 10.5.7.20, not on your network. 10.6. Not on your network. But the other way to write this is called Cedar notation. And it just says, oh, that's 24 bits. And so it'll be represented as 10.5.6. And because the subnet mask is supposed to say we're not using any of these, so my chart, my diagram's wrong. It's supposed to say 0 there and then 24. Now the one I showed you said 20, right? Or you said it was 20. It said 240, right?
240. Oh, yes.
255,
yes,
255, 240. So that's going to be 128. Here's the way you do it. You say 240 is bigger than 128, so it's got to have the 128, right? So that leaves 112.
Yes.
And so that's bigger than 64, so you got to take that off. And then you've got 8 and 4, right? So the biggest one you can get out of there is 32. And so that leaves you with 16. So it's a 1, 1, 1, 1. Is it? That's how you do it.
6 minus 11 minus 6 is 5, not 4.
I'm in a hurry. Which one is wrong?
No, but
the
oh
four-
wait, I can't. I'm the one who can't do this. Math.
It to be consecutive because
Yeah.
it's subnet math. So I
Yeah,
think
no.
this is right. So it would be 1 1 1 1 0 0 0 0. That makes sense. And so that would be
Or you could just figure out what was 15 and reverse everything.
you could do that, yeah. But that's once you understand it. So if this was 240 instead, you would only be counting the first 4 of these, and so it would be 8 plus 8 plus 4.
Which is
Which is negative 20.
Which is 20. So then this would
Canonically,
be,
it's
so that'd be 20, and this would be 0. Because
not.
up to that point. It's 0.
Yes.
Yeah.
However,
So that's that last part, don't worry.
don't worry.
you know, when it's
Look at that. That's for him.
If you can see 2 of the same addresses, kind of like 10.5.8, and it will be on the same network as you,
Yeah,
even though that third number is different.
that gets tricky.
So that's when you have to
I'm
open.
kind of
up a
regretting
subnet
putting that.
in this network.
But in this case, when you see multiples of 8 in a Cedar address, like 24, if you see 8, 16, 24, then you're just to figure out if you're on the same network, you're either looking at the first number or the first 2 numbers or the first 3 numbers.
How about a cider of 32?
That exists, and it's to declare an individual host. Yeah. See it a lot. On
Definitely
firewall
AWS.
rules.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, that's true.
What's that?
And AWS. I've dealt with them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Really? Why did they use /32s in AWS?
So then you can isolate to a
Yes.
single host.
Yeah.
that can
Yeah.
connect to the
Makes sense.
AWS node. I use it for Minecraft server proxy.
Okay.
They also use Cisco devices also use that for their loopback addresses.
Overview. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Here's it too.
Yeah. Okay. So that's our host. So far, we've gotten through the purple dot. And
Oh,
so we got an hour. So let's just keep that in mind. We can write down our questions and commentary if they're too far afield and send them to Dear Abby or me or Zulip. There's a questions thing in Zulip.
Legend.
Yes. So this person wants Reddit. How are they going to get there? They open their browser, type in reddit.com, they hit enter. What happens next?
Do I have an IP address?
That's a very good guess. So do I have an IP address? This doesn't mean do I know Reddit's IP address. We just kind of assumed that Mac has an IP address, but actually when you start your computer, it doesn't. And if you don't configure anything about IP, it might not, or it might get an atrocious a PIPA address of 169.254. something, which works at a LAN party, but
where?
LAN party. Yay.
we don't need to worry about that. So, but if you don't have an IP address, if the answer is no, you're going to go yellow. Yellow route goes to, and this could be on your network or what, but someplace you're going to go to this DHCP server. DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. You don't have to remember that, except for this question. What's a host? This is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. What's a host?
Device or without an IP, in this case, with an IP address.
Well, we're going to configure a host, so we're going to
Yeah.
give it an IP address, right? That's what this is about. So the DHCP server knows that it can do a lot more than an IP, but for what we care about right now, it's responsible for doling out IP addresses. And in this case, we're kind of pretending that this is hooked up to that this is part of my router, hooked up to my router. So this is in my house. You can see at the top, it says this is my network. And so it's gonna say, hey, I own addresses for this 10.000. That's a lot easier to say than 2255. And so it owns addresses for this 10 dot network. And so it's going to return back to this computer all this IP information. And now it's got an IP address, and now it has become a host, an IP host. Okay. So do I have an IP address? I do now. Next question. What's the next question? You're amazing. Do I know Reddit's IP address? There are lots of ways we might already know Reddit's IP address, like I just went there a minute ago. And
Resolver, let's go.
What's that?
Stub resolver.
Stub resolver, yes. Or yeah, DNS cache, depending on whatever. But yeah, you might have it cached somehow locally. But no gets you the red path.
Uh-oh.
And obviously we're going to Russia. I don't know. But
Obviously, going to Russia.
so yeah, you might have some local cache of this, but assuming we don't, what you're going to do is go out to a DNS server. My employer is authoritative for more DNS records than anybody, in a way. And we have a lot of these servers. So DNS stands, I always forget, domain name server system or domain name system, I think.
Yes.
It's just domain DNS. I remember.
It's always DNS.
It's always,
Engineers are second least creative, but only two mathematicians.
That's fair.
I put mathematicians ahead of us. Although they do come up with things like Hilbert space. Why'd you call it that? Hilbert thought of it, Whoa, So where a DHCP server hands out IP addresses to use, very generous thing. DNS is a worldwide database mesh, hierarchical mesh. Those are contradictory, but they're not. In this case, it's a big splattering of a huge hierarchical database distributed that can take a name like reddit.com and turn it into an IP address, because you can't just go to a name on the internet. You need an IP address. It can also do other things like take an IP address and return a name, but usually that name isn't like reddit.com. It's got other purposes. It can, you can take a domain name and find the mail servers for it. You can find the name servers for it. You can find all sorts of things. And the best client for it is this thing, is a program, the best command line client for it is a program called Dig. But Dig's not always installed. There's another one called NSLookup that's older, but you know, everybody over the age of 15 tends to like use that one first. Yeah, if Dig's available, Dig's the one to use. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to impugn you. It's just that you see people use NSLookup all the time because it's installed
dirty
everywhere. It's quick and dirty, and it usually gets you what you want.
Hooters works too, but
Who is this? That's a different protocol. It's different information. But
you get used to useful stuff though.
yeah, absolutely. So just and just to see the information that gets sent back, we need 128 point up there. I'm getting there. Okay. So if I call this the reference domain for the internet at work, because every time we have a new product, I will at least temporarily attach it to this domain. Or if we want to know, hey, what's this look like when it works right? I'm like, hey, let's look at my domain, because I've done almost everything to it. But it's called databaseguy.com. So if I say that if I just say dig databaseguy.com, and this is a Linux window, this is what the basic dig output looks like. And it's a lot. But you can see the question section, this part should make sense, is that I asked for that. Now, the default, there are different record types in DNS, and in A record, A stands for address, and it specifically stands for IPv4 address. If it's an IPv6 address, since they're 4 times larger, it's cleverly AAAA. Now, that's creative, right?
Very creative.
And what it's saying here is that databaseguy.com has the IP address 160.153.48.1. And then it's got some other information about it. But if I want to see other information, I can say, oh gosh, I used NSLookup the most too. Is it -T? Let's try that. I might have to look at the man page. There we go. Wow, I got it right. So I can say the type of record I want to see is NS, name servers. And then it shows that in the question section. Then the answer section changes and shows me my 2 name servers, which are GoDaddy name servers. One thing you might notice, if you're paying attention closely and are freakishly observant, is that the domain names all have a period after them. The host names also have a period after them. And in DNS, if a period is after a name, that means that's an absolute name. You don't go any further. Full stop is a good way to remember that. If there's not a period after a name, it means it's a relative name or partial name. And let's see, what? This is weird. I'm not at home. I don't know what's going to happen. Well, let me try this. I don't think this is going to work. No, if I was at home, I'd be able to say ping wormhole, and my home domain is area51.network, and it would know to append that to my search. If I said ping wormhole dot, I believe it wouldn't do that. That's a weird way to illustrate it. It's really a DNS thing. If you look at a DNS database, if I create a record in a DNS database for www, it won't have a dot after it. because you want to put the domain name after it. So yeah. So if I were to, there should be a www for this. Oh, but they show it though. They show it all as one shot. This one's interesting, by the way, because I asked for www and it didn't specify a type. So it assumes that's the default for an address record. And it gives me an address record, but it's not for www. It gives me this one for databaseguy.com. And the reason for that, and this is to save me another trip, right, is that the record for www, that's as much fun as saying all those 255s, is something called a CNAME record. And CNAME, the word you just used, I think, is what's CNAME stand for?
Ooh. Common name? No.
That's basically what it means. Canonical name.
Canonical name.
Canonical means common or standardized. It's the dumbest thing in the world to have canonical basically mean common, because this is not a common word. But basically it's an alias in DNS. And so since it's an alias and they know that I want the IP address, that's why I'm here. They turn around and give me the thing it's an alias for, because that has the IP address. That's just how DIG works. So anyway, you can do these, and there's actually there's a parameter in DIG to turn on a debug trace, and you can see what it'll do is it'll look way up the top of the internet, look at the root servers and say, hey, give me a name server for com. And then it'll go to the com servers and say, hey, give me a name server for databaseguy.com. And then it'll go there and say, hey, what's www for databaseguy.com? So it's kind of, it's not recursive, it's iterative. So anyway, we do that, talk to a DNS server. And then at that point, we've got an address for Reddit. And at this point, we ask ourselves again, I guess, do I know Reddit's IP address? And now the answer is yes. So Isaac, got to get the new guys involved. What's the next question we ask?
We ask, what is Reddit online network?
Yeah, what do you think without looking?
And I think next, after you have the IP address, well, I hope you know what your gateway is. Well, you're gonna have a real hard time leaving the network.
Yeah, I think the answer to this one's probably no. Reddit.com is not
Pretty safe.
on our network.
But I
But-
have my own Reddit.
Yes,
I'm putting my
that's
own-
true. You can put something, you can configure your network to say the answer is yes.
Yeah, I think so too. You can
Um,
modify your DNS.
So in this case, how are we going to decide?
Subnet mask and IP address.
Right, we're gonna decide. We're not just gonna guess. We're not gonna say, ooh, wow, Isaac said it's probably not.
Probably.
My Alexa Echo is listening and and he said no. But yeah, we're gonna go back to that host definition. And we know from this information up here that the first 24 bits, the 10.0.2, that's what I use to decide, is this thing on my network. But the address I got for Reddit, which I didn't put on here, but it's over here, whoops, someplace. The address I got for Reddit was 151, 101, 197, 140. I just didn't write it on the other side. So does 151.101.197 equal 10.0.2? No. That's how I answer the question, right? So now I know it's not on my network. And now we know everything we need to know to get to Reddit, including how we get there. We just haven't kind of connected the dots yet. Because what happens is that question, is Reddit on my network, combined with actually there's one more thing, combined with the question that you didn't really ask as a question, but the concept that Isaac raised, I better know where my default router
My
is.
gateway is.
Or I need to know my routes. You're going to have a route that will tell you where to go for this IP address. And For home, you've usually got a router and it takes all the routes, okay? And we don't need to get into how to read a route table. This is Linux, so hey, there we go. Oh, really? There we go. So in this one, pretty easy. This says that if it's on my subnet, and there's that 240 mask we talked about, a little different, but if it's on this subnet, it goes through me, basically. The gateway is the network, I guess. And otherwise, it goes through this Cardiff.ms home. That's kind of a weird example because that's a virtual machine. So smoothly moving over to this one.
Like a proxy connection.
Windows sets up that's a good question. Windows sets up this WSL firewall adapter, and that's what it goes through. So it's a little bit weird.
I think I'm seeing my loop back on here as well. Unless that's the router.
Yeah,
I mean, it would make sense.
the reason I kind of wanted to use that example is because this is the Windows route table.
Yeah.
But my default route is this one that goes to a gateway that belongs to this building. Okay, this is my upstream route. Now, none of these other routes are going to apply. And I can, even if this isn't the network on the diagram, but if I'm going to Reddit, 172.16, that's a private IP space. 172.16 and so is 172.26 and 28. I believe 192.168 is definitely private. 224 is 224 is special. 169.254 is a PIPA, which is special. 127 is loopback. There's nothing else there in all that mess that can get out to the internet. That's all I want to say. Okay. So to get to the internet, I have to go through my default gateway. And that's on this interface, which is my IP address. So that's the interface I'm going to use. If I had multiple interfaces, right, I would have to know which network card to use, but I only have one. So that's that interface, and this is the router that Geonetric's giving me, right? So it's there's a lot there, but it's just a fat way of saying, yeah, that's where you need to go. So
Curious why Windows is has that many multicasts in its routing table.
that's one, but write it down. Help section.
Yeah, well,
Write it down.
it had one multicast, but multiple different routes for that one multicast.
Okay. All right. So with that pattern kind of established, a router is a host. It has IP addresses. Otherwise, how would we route to it? So what's special about a router that makes it a router? Yeah,
It routes things.
that's a good answer. What enables it to route things?
Being connected.
To what?
The network.
How many networks?
Many as it likes.
What's the number of networks that a router can't be connected to?
0.
Or,
You can't be connected to one. Yeah.
yeah, he beat you to it.
From one place to another.
Yeah, it has to be, in order for it to function very well outside of some kind of weird test mode or whatever, which I can't right now imagine, and usually I'm pretty good at imagining weird things. It has to be on 2 networks, right? A computer, you can actually use a computer as a soft router if you stick 2 network cards in it. So yeah, it has to be on 2 networks. Other than that little fact right there, the router is going to behave just like the computer did. It's going to make the same decision. Okay. So, what was it? Hey, guess what? Zoom's in my way. this is the best use of a second screen, is that you can get rid of this. Okay, so that Zoom's still in my way. Oh, I can get rid of this one, it looks like. There it is, 151, 101, 193. Hereafter referred to as RedditNet. So I'm not going to remember that. So our host asked the question, is RedditNet on my network, or it's actually a specific address, right? So we'll call it, is Reddit's address, we'll call it, is Reddit's address on my network? Decided no, because the subnet didn't match. Okay, which route should I follow? For our Mac at home, it went to our local router, right? That we got from MediaCom or Best Buy or whatever. And so what's the router do? Looks at the IP address. It says, you know, I've got 2 or more networks here. Does Reddit's address match any of my subnets? It's like, no, right? Okay, look at my route table. Where's it go next? And so it just sends it upstream to another router. And that same question is much more powerful than it sounds like at first, because every router just asks this question, is this a local address for me? That's the kind of easier way to say it. Is this a local address? Am I connected to this network? And if the answer is no, I look at the route table and I just pass it from one router to another router to another router. And then this router we get to finally, it says, oh yeah, actually that's one. In this case, this is like Reddit's default gateway I've put down. Is that its edge? No, the edge I put up there. Looks like the edge. That whole line is its edge. So this is like Reddit's edge router, where it connects to the public internet. And it says, yeah, that is a local network for me. And so not only do I have this as my network, I can find the actual .5. I know who that host is, right? And so now I'm going to deliver that to this, you know, this router. Why did I do it this way? Does he know? There might be some confusion in my head about how I'm meant to do this. But anyway, between that router and this router, they know what to do with that specific IP address, and they get it to Reddit, right? And then there's more magic that happens. Reddit has a server farm, so the request goes to something, right? And I think something in this case is AWS, but this is a general idea. And all along the way, it's interesting because every time it gets forwarded, you know, it comes from a different host, you know, from one router to another router to another router to another router, but they've each maintained the original source. They each know, they don't know it, they each know that it came from your router. Okay. And what's going to happen is that when Reddit decides to send it back to you, it's just going to pop this thing in reverse, and everything's going to come back. It'll get to your router, and your router is going to remember this case. Well, it depends if it's NAT or NAT or Pat or anybody else that sounds like a jazz singer. But what it'll probably do is it'll say, you know, somebody connected, you know, to me with this client address and this, and so it'll send it back to that same port that originated the request, and you'll get the response, even though you're on a private network. The router is going to remember, you know, where it came from. There's some magic. That's all we're not going to talk about today, but that's basically, you know, how this works. And I think I labeled, yeah, on your router, one side of it's on the public IP. It could be on your ISP's private IP, but basically the first public IP you see on your way out, which for me is actually on my router. You know, that's what comes back when you say, what's my IP? That's your edge connection. So, you know, there's going to be more devices on your local network, which I have drawn here. in a spiffy way. We've got an Android phone to negate the karma of the MacBook. I had a MacBook. I own two. They're both from GoDaddy, and they're old enough that I think GoDaddy just forgot that I have them. So
I had
I
to virtualize Intox once.
did that.
God.
It's hard.
It is really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kept running into SEO experiments.
yeah, that's because as far as my understanding follows, there's no actual like Apple published virtual machine in it for MacBook. You have to code your own.
No, what? So some guy on GitHub dumped the NVRAM, and so you can virtualize the hardware on KMOO.
He just dumped. Well, he dumped his computer. That doesn't necessarily mean
You have to
that
give them
it's
like,
compatible
I
with
think,
everything.
20 seconds. I just feel really bad if every time it started, I'd say, guys.
I think. On a tangent that's actually related, but it's not.
Well, most
I
of the time
encourage
it's
this
easy.
though when I say it's hard. Yeah. So let's see here. So basically, that's how a web request works. That's a high-level oversimplification of a HTTPS request. Every stinking time you hit that refresh button. And we've left out a lot of things like how the encryption works. Later in the year, we'll probably revisit for the returners, like how Diffie-Hellman works to get a channel secured. And so we'll actually walk through one security protocol, because that was enough, wasn't it, guys? It was just Diffie-Hellman. I really don't want to like walk through RSA or anything else. It's not my gig. I'm a database guy.
Oh, different key protocols or
Yeah.
key
No, I wanted to do
creation.
Diffie-Hellman was how you can establish a. Remember how we walked through the code and built how to establish a private key while the world watches.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Eve is listening. Yeah. So we'll actually look at how to do that. And last year we wrote code to do that in Python. Can't remember, we didn't do that in Bash. We did something else.
We can do it in
You
C.
mind that 30-second
You should not
change?
see.
Yep.
I think. this
Other
actually-
benevolent dictator.
Just to relate this to what we do here.
Yeah,
Each
please
of
do
these
that.
Steps are areas where there can be. You can do things. I'm sure you can, I just don't know what they are for, if you can do things with the DHCP server
Mhm.
that creates vulnerabilities. Certainly DNS is a major vulnerability. You can do things with that. You can do things with the DNS cache. You can,
That's cash.
each of these steps are areas where there can be an attack. So just wanted to relate that back into the broader picture of what we.
Yeah, I kind of want to go back through with things we'll do on here, and I think I'll add in some vulnerabilities, but not until Chad says something. I thought you had your.
Oh, I was
You just stretch
well,
it.
no, I was gonna. Another attack vector is even the client too, right? Because you can inject
Clients are the
hosting
worst.
values, sorts of
You can
fun.
never trust the client.
Yep.
No,
You could also hack Reddit.
I don't recommend doing that.
So that actually also reminded me. So Oxel mentioned earlier that which is another stance of protection, that you attempted to hack the Ice Age network and you found a Raspberry Pi.
No,
No?
I
Well-
just ran Nmap on the net and found a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
called a honeypot.
The Raspberry Pi?
Yeah. It's specifically configured to respond to everything and advertise itself as a very hackable Raspberry Pi. That way the tech department there knows whether or not somebody is trying to hack them, because the Raspberry Pi will respond
The
to
reason I
any
don't think
connection.
it's a honeypot is because it's using default credentials.
That's why it
That
is.
sounds like
That's
honey. So
Just like a Raspberry.
that's
That-
because
well,
Yeah, it is.
with
It could be a
with-
honey.
well, honeypot.
Honeypot.
okay, okay.
Always.
Lead.
It's the way
by
that they-
responding to me. So the most important thing about that is that we do not let any scanning activity or any activity off of our School 14 network. And in the competition, we don't send any packets except through the proxy to get to the internet. We don't do anything off of our network or we will be penalized. Okay. We can be penalized for things we do on School 14 and Ice Age before the competition network's available. So if, oh yeah,
I
so-
didn't know.
why not? I mean, why wouldn't we be? You go starting to like run scans on, widely across their network that seem appropriate.
You gotta be
Yeah.
careful with scanning because you can bog down the network and you can set off IDS and IPS pretty.
Yeah, so we stay in our lane, right? They've graciously allowed us to use this really expensive thing. And we stay inside School 14. And when it's our time to get ready and to do the competition, we stay inside what will undoubtedly be Team 5's network.
You do like Team Z.
Team
No,
Z.
52Z, whatever team we are, we
Team
name
S.
ourselves Team 5.
He's suggesting an alternative.
They
No.
call us up.
But let them
Team 13, Team 5.
You gotta be like Team 3. Yeah, you gotta be like we do.
Yeah,
Okay, let's go. So anybody have questions about this document? It's a new thing, it's a lot.
the cloud.
The cloud is a bunch of computers somebody else owns.
Basically, that's the ISP problem.
Yeah, it's, and with providers like AWS, they provide usually two kinds of redundancy. So Google, Microsoft, AWS, they'll give you regions, which are highly separated, like US East, US West, Southeast Asia, Singapore, stuff like that. And then inside of a region, they'll have something which like AWS calls it an availability zone, which are guaranteed to be at least a certain distance apart, but they're very close to each other in terms of like fiber distance. So you usually set up a cluster with a node in each zone close to each other, but then for your geo distribution, you set up in multiple regions so that you're kind of more global. And then you do things like with content acceleration, content distribution stuff, and I'm happy we have people that are really good at that.
They get really hard on us. They could have the scenario be we're a cloud service provider.
Well, that'd be fun.
That'd
be weird. It would be cool if they had us set up, if they set up a cloud provider and had us deploy to it.
So we'd be like inside vSphere, running vSphere.
Yeah, I don't see the point of that.
Well, that would be basically kind of like your job is to like fully build and set up I see them basically turning that into your job is to fully build and set up this high school networks virtualization software that was given to you on servers that was given to you by the company that they bought the servers from Cisco, from I don't know, from various ISPs that they bought their physical hardware from. Your job is then to deploy virtualization hardware on it.
You could suggest it.
It would
Go
be
to
fun.
that place he knows the name of.
However, that's
Yeah, but
Nesting
setting up
virtualization.
cloud, yeah, and they don't always turn it on. Setting up
Yeah.
cloud infrastructure is just not something anybody is likely to do in their career. So, but
Yeah,
setting up a
right.
virtualized
Especially
network,
more-
that's different.
more.
No, I mean, but setting up something like AWS, installing yeah. So doesn't matter, not for here, not for today, but maybe you guys are talking about different things though. So things we'll have to deal with one way or another. Hosts, obviously, Now, at the competition, the clients will actually be part of a different team. There's a team called the Green Team, not the Dream Team. And they represent like office workers, or depending on the scenario, high school people, students or workers, police dispatch, I think one year, just whatever the scenario is, they'll be the people using the software we set up. And so their clients could be a point of vulnerability, but they don't get hacked. We get hacked. So there's sort of a trusted zone for the competition. But in real life, we regard at GoDaddy, we regard that point of entry as our most vulnerable thing. And actually the domain, the Active Directory domain that people log into, we regard as our most, our most vulnerable asset, along with the people or employees. And so we've actually severed, there's no trust. That's a technical thing. Our domain that people log into, and people can be socially engineered, as we all know, that domain and the domain that our business assets, our servers and stuff are in, there's no trust, no cross authentication, nothing that they share in common. So to get into the domain where the business assets are, you have to go through this highly secure rigmarole.
There's no way to get between them as far as you know.
There's not, there's no, it's like an air gap. We have a highly controlled thing called CyberArk that's the way to get there. So but there's no, there's no trust in Active Directory. And when we go to it, we have this one thing that we've configured that changes our password all the time for the other domain. We don't know what it is. So, yeah.
So I think there's a limit to that as far as the competition.
Mhm.
Because in the last competition, so they had, Green Team user so-and-so's password must be
Right.
password, that
Good
was
point.
the requirement.
Yep.
And what Red Team did is they managed to hack into
Yeah.
some teams,
Yes.
and find that password and then
Good
use
point.
it on other teams.
Good
Yeah.
point.
So that idea of the trust is not absolute.
Trust is for the machine.
Yeah,
Their machines are off limits, but you're right.
But the
The
user
accountants.
accounts.
Yep.
there are specific like competition specific security policies that like aren't used that much in the real world. Because for this, if team 3 has terrible security and the red team hacks them and discovers their student account passwords, we are mandatorily required to use the same
I
password.
just wanted to.
Yes.
It's sort of a limit.
Mhm.
And we're pretty much everything.
Right.
They know. But it was more about how quickly you catch it.
Right.
But
So yeah, if I can try to sum that up, the workstations are off limits. There won't be malware installed on the workstations.
but
The
only way they could have
workstations,
done
yeah. Probably hacking the green person. Yeah. Or whichever, yeah. But there won't be malware installed on the green workstation. So that's what I mean. The host is off limits, but this is a really good point. And you don't, if you secure your network correctly, it won't matter. So we assume that all the common passwords that are shared across the teams, we just assume that the red team knows those. Because they will. Somebody will print a copy of the documentation and hand it to the red team.
It's like the dark web.
Yeah, because somebody will show up for the competition, not having, they'll show up thinking they're supposed to start securing today, or they'll just show up to do the anomalies, little puzzles, and they won't have done anything to their servers and every year they will have done stuff to their servers, they will have tried, but the passwords will still be CDC, which is the default password for every competition, basically. And so we just assume that those are dirty as soon as we see them. So yeah, it's a great point.
And you can reset them or force them to be reset.
No,
or
they
you
have to
can't-
stay
they
the
have to
same.
stay the
Yeah,
same.
so you have to look at what their permissions are, and you have to look hard at like the file permissions and, you know, what can this person do? What are they required to do? So it becomes a
And then
good
just-
conversation
and then just limit scope from there, basically.
as allowed.
Yeah. That's where user policy, as we discovered last competition, that's where as Chris said, like you must assume that they know every single password. So that's where individual user policy via Active Directory and just like general Linux common sense comes into play. Assume that your student accounts will get hacked. So how do you prevent the student accounts from being able to compromise the servers? Don't give them right access to Etsy, and don't use Active Directory domain policy to restrict their administrative access to the machine.
Yep.
And then after that, they can log in, they can mess
They can
around,
do what they need
they
to
can
do.
what they need on the student account, and they can say, hey, we hacked a student account. Yeah, but you didn't even touch our development server. So
Yeah. And it's not necessarily student accounts, it's the common, the accounts
I
with
use
shared
student
passwords.
accounts,
Yeah.
For this one example. However, there are also like system administrator account passwords that are also like generic across everything. Those passwords also have to be like, make sure that your administrative access is, they can run SSH or RDP, but they can't do this or that.
Okay, so going onward and upward with the real world versus competition, I guess here. DHCP servers, vulnerability with DHCP servers in a lot of networks would be just a race configuration, a race condition. When you need a DHCP configuration for your computer, you just basically, because we haven't talked about some of the things like when a host is on your network, how do you find them? How do you know which one to communicate with? And it's a little different than just saying, hi, .9, I'd like to talk to you. For DHCP servers, how do you talk to it? You don't have an IP address yet, right? So basically you scream at the network, I want a configuration. And the DHCP server responds. Well, what if I have a bad one? And it responds first.
Somebody else sets up another one.
Right. So yeah, that's what I mean. If somebody sets up another one, responds first, and gives you a bogus configuration, decides to play man in the middle or something like that. So at the competition, though, we will use static IP addresses as you typically would with servers. So they just won't need DHCP. But during the year, when we're practicing, we might set up a DHCP, we might not.
It's very, I would say it's needed to know how to configure DHCP, but we don't practically need it for the competition, but it's still very, very useful to know.
So DNS, some of you guys are talking about DNS problems, go for it. I'm going to drink soda. Somebody talk about DNS vulnerabilities.
By default, DNS doesn't have any encryption or host verification. So as a result, whenever you send a request for DNS, you're just kind of hoping and praying that it actually came from the DNS server and not from a bad actor somewhere along the way. So what you can do is you can set up your own DNS server, make it authoritative, and whenever a request comes in, you can respond first and give them a bogus IP address.
Or you can hack the DNS server.
Don't do that. That is more work than what it's worth. Just set up your own DNS server. It's not that hard, man. Anyway, you just set up that, and then whenever a request comes in, you can give it a URL to some server that you have access to. So then they'll go to that instead. And what's even better is now you've poisoned their DNS cache. Because now it lives in their stub resolver. So whenever they go to that URL, until their cache is refreshed, they will always go to that bad server.
Change my mind on looking this up. There was, we talked about this last year and might find the article again. But I don't know if my current boss was the chief architect at VeriSign for quite a while. And VeriSign owns the com and net top level domains, along with some others that honestly don't matter as much because nothing matters as much as com and net. Maybe org.
Yeah.
And gov is
That's,
that's well,
oh, yes.
Gov has
Government.
gov is locked down differently. So he told me, and I mentioned this or shared an article last year, probably in Zulip. I don't know if it is though. It doesn't feel like it's in Zulip, but it should have been put in Zulip. That there were these people who took down
Oh, yeah.
all but 2, 3 of
Yeah,
the
it's two.
of the
all but
hosts of the root name servers for the internet some time ago. And initially they were like, oh, this has to be a state sponsored,
Nope.
bad actor and all this. It was like, fistful of guys who had just done a lot of recon. They'd come in and they'd hit one server and kind of probe it and look for limits about what it could do. And once they had a whole bunch of notes, they just hit them all at the same time. And my boss was like, we came this close to the internet shutting down. And they made a lot of changes to the root servers after that and made them a lot more redundant.
So,
Yeah,
nothing
no kidding.
changed after you lost all of your.
Most
root
of the
servers
internet
except
went
for
down.
two.
Yeah.
If you lose most of the internet and nothing changes to your configuration, then you have a problem.
Yeah, they didn't.
Your mom asks, what did you do today? Was took out the internet.
Yeah.
I just
So-
Google.
If you do that, I can't.
Now,
Oopsie.
me and like three other
Yeah.
guys just were bored on like a Friday night,
Boys on their board.
The boys are back in town. So Axel joked something about hacking Reddit. This is actually mostly what the competition's about. We will stand up a service. On this diagram, Reddit is a service. We'll stand up a group of services. These will be attacked by, and we're called the blue team. And as serendipity would have it, that part of the document is blue. So we will be standing up a set of services. Usually, there's almost always a website. In the past, what's a variety of things? We had a game once, a game,
Oh, I
online
remember
game.
that, yeah.
There was one year with police and emergency response stuff. So pharmacy. I wasn't around. I was looking at you because, yeah. Early on, there were some generic ones like you're in charge of there's this company and their IT staff was terrible and they got fired and now you have to fix it.
I mean, it's almost always that you're replacing
Yeah.
company that allows them basically. I did.
Yeah.
So upset of being fired.
Yeah.
So
And components of the apps will typically include, there'll be a database server. Sometimes there'll be an application server, and that's a wild card because you don't know. Basically, you don't know ahead of time. And I think we've been around to know that there's no guarantees about whether there will be Windows servers or Linux servers or both. There's no guarantees what languages the apps will be written in. There's no guarantees about whether it'll be a straight web app, so to speak, or if there will be a full-blown application server like Tomcat or something involved. There's no guarantees about how much we'll be able to patch things. Usually they'll let you patch, like if they give you a server, they'll let you patch it on its current version. they'll let you patch the apps on their current version, but sometimes they'll say you can't change the version, right?
Yep, they did that with our file server last year.
And sometimes they'll say
You can't upgrade to Alma, you can upgrade it up until this
Alma
point.
X, yeah.
Yeah,
Debian?
Sometimes they've let us rebuild it from scratch. But that's a high risk, high reward move.
Cause they give you like the images and stuff.
Well, they give you a
Yes.
server with an app on it, and sometimes we've asked, hey, can we just rebuild this? And they're like, yeah, good luck. Yeah. You might want to take a snapshot of what it is now, you know? And so we'd shut the one down and just try to pull the code off of it and everything. It's risky, I mean, because you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
If you dig around and you can find historical documents of previous competitions. I mean, I'm gonna
I'm
say
sure you
it's
found them.
almost, I'm not aware of any that haven't had at least one Linux server and one Windows server. I haven't seen one.
Yeah.
that didn't.
Yeah, I think that we used to, in the earlier days, it was almost all Linux heavy, but a lot of them had like one RDP server, I think. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yes. Well, that one kind of bothered me because the way that they set up their network was completely contradictory towards having an RDP server. They had a designated remote access box, but then they made it mandatory that every other box must have public facing RDP ports and public facing services. Why are you giving us a remote access box if you're just going to make every other server remote accessible?
We do that. So,
Really?
so an RDP box that's dedicated to RDP might be one for people to run apps on or something. But then other boxes, if they're Windows boxes, we make RDP accessible if we're not in some circumstances, so that people can RDP there for maintenance, for admin work, right? Things
True.
like that.
Yeah. I
Because
guess
otherwise, I mean, right, we use bastions now in this super secure zone, but then if we're wanting to do admin work on a server, we have to be actually on the server. We go to one of those bastions, then we RDP to the server. So they both have RDP open. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's-
I guess though that I'm following like what my father does was, which he has a management box with like
Mhm.
every single management tool, DHCP manager, DNS manager.
Right.
Then he also does absolutely have RDP available on the boxes, but it's not public facing. You have to RDP hop
Mhm.
into the management, and then from there, then into your file server and DHCP.
Right.
If you need to, then you can, but the tool's
Mhm.
already installed. So
Yeah.
if there's a DHCP problem, most of the time, DHCP management
Mhm.
tools can fix it. But if you really can't, then RDP hop into it.
Yeah, might have been just a competition thing, because you would have wanted to see it like just open to
Yeah.
.NET.
Yeah,
Right.
the way that I would do it was every single server only, you can run as many services on it as you want, but the services must only accept connections from the local subnet, nowhere else, no one else. Then make one management box that only has RDP public facing, which can accept connections from anybody anywhere.
Mhm.
Then after that, just like restrict your focus on RDP, and then after that, you don't really have to obviously still secure the other servers, but you don't really have to worry about it too much.
Sadly, it's not a certification test, though.
Yeah,
They have to do things to make us
Exactly.
solve unusual problems.
yeah.
Here's a tidbit for you that might drive you crazy. In AWS, we don't open up the RDP port. We just RDP to it.
Wait,
No, that's all.
AWS Magic, you don't open up the RDP port. Is it
We
basically,
RDP to it on port 3389, but we don't open it.
but you don't open that port?
No, we don't.
VPN hopping then?
I'm not intending to
VPN.
tell you anything else about this.
Yeah. I don't know. AWS Magic, so
AWS is magic.
AWS is terrible.
AWS is awesome.
Um, I would assume then, if you don't open the port, then my guess is that AWS says, oh, hey, you want to RDP into this guy. then it goes through its own like magic of routers and gateways and switches through its network. That way, all VPN, all RDP connections go through one system that it manages. Then from there, it then distributes them into the different.
Maybe it's
But
just,
the RDP port's closed.
maybe it's just like a
However,
really
it's
advanced
Amazon
KVM
search, so. KVM
But
switch.
no, this is a,
possible.
no, this is a, so they have this EC2 service where you just run
Yeah.
Windows box. It's a Windows server with the RDP port closed.
Yes,
AWS is just magic.
yeah,
man.
yeah, I'm not sure how specifically that works, but my solution to that is it's Amazon's box, so.
No, it's my box. They don't do
Mm.
anything to it. I just
It's
installed it.
Amazon's physical server, so.
No, they can't, they don't do that. It's,
Ooh, I got it.
Really getting the wheels turning here.
Oh, yeah, yep, yep. They, assuming that it's, that there's like one server, they can then, like, from a theory perspective, use the physical server box to like the physical server virtualization software to access the physical screen, then basically just throw that at the RDP port. It doesn't really, it can be closed, like that way the RDP port is closed, but that way you're accessing the physical screen via the hypervisor. Then after that, as far as you know, you're accessing it from RDP, but
we use port 3389,
Yep.
not the hypervisor.
yep.
So moving on.
I don't know.
I'll tell you in a couple of weeks.
Can draw a physical diagram explaining what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but it's wrong. Don't die.
Why is that right? Windows VM?
So
Oh, that would be Isaac.
we have a
No.
Most of the time, if it's psychotic, it's you.
so Axel mentioned something in chat. He's got a PR that's been waiting for a reviewer.
That's bold news.
Yeah, bold.
But yeah, but you guys are reviewers now. So
That's why I reviewed it.
Speaking of
You did?
GitHub,
I did.
I have an open issue on there. We're gonna discuss some sort of strategy stuff. It's all listed there.
oh yeah, I saw that, but I didn't look at it. So I saw that you said there was an issue.
But yeah, now I guess I reward Isaac because I said I'd put out rewards.
Oh, you're putting out like GitHub or like Stack Exchange bounties or something?
He gets his choice between my homemade coffee and a homemade fries saying top PR merger.
What kind of coffee is it?
Homemade.
I do it all at home.
Like,
I can do
Define-
4-over, I can do French.
Please, caffeine or a time that means
which kind really are you using?
Homemade.
Well,
From 4
he did it himself and roasted them himself.
They're not pre-ground.
not pre-ground. Okay, there
They're
you
like local
Yeah.
roaster.
go. Okay. Ooh,
Fun
take the
thing.
coffee. It's you get the beans, but then everything else is like ground them, press them.
But he's gonna have a trophy.
Yes,
Nothing.
but the coffee.
Oh. That's hard.
So the PR got reviewed?
Yes.
Okay, and the strategy stuff, was that for like competition?
Yeah.
So probably later, I think.
Yeah.
It's good that we're covering, like, trying to get some idea of what the competition's like up front, but strategy is probably too early. So I think the last thing I want to do is get Isaac on the actual invitation for this meeting.
Your calendar now. Good grief.
Wait,
It's
what
just
calendar
gonna be in your
do you
inbox.
use?
Google.
You don't have to add it to your
Yeah.
calendar. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was considering it
Okay.
Now I
You don't have to add it to your calendar. You can just save the link to the meeting.
Oh, I'll do that then. I'll
Yeah.
just have it live in my inbox permanently.
I am a Google Calendar freak. Even my old man who works from home and who like,
First old man reference.
yes. Yeah, I switched around in between old man and father. But yeah, even my old man who works from home and who has access to all of his meetings in the Slack is still like, he wouldn't know where to walk next without Google Calendar. But
So
to be fair, last time is 9 o'clock,
Only-
6
I
o'clock.
know it's nice chatting, but-
So, Chad. Dot.
Oh, did Linux break again?
and then
Linux is great.
Yeah.
man. I'm using a really bad version. of
Okay,
Linux that
also,
instead.
I want to
two. I'm running this. No, I'm running Cube though. That's running Windows. Thick for you.
Isaac,
Yes.
what email address?
Isaac.palmer@gmail.com. Oh, the last name. You need me to.
Yeah.
Let me try it again. PALMERSHEIM
Yes, sir.
holy crap, you got it on the
at
first shot.
Gmail.
I'm gonna make sure that.
No,
Did
I
you-
got it wrong last
How
time.
do you spell my first name?
ISAAC.
Thank you. You
Yeah.
did it right. Let's go.
Holy crap. I'm
Okay. And Josh, do you have
And
the
then,
calendar? I sent it to a different.
Remote connected.
Uh,
I got Raspberry Pi running. Only network. Not yet publicly. I can
Yeah.
pull AP.
Yeah, I sent it to JP Inventions, but do you have it on Proton or you want it? Okay. Oh, I think I saw a thing that said this event has been forwarded to, or has been accepted by, but they're not on the list. It's like. Okay.
Yeah.
Unless this
Without interrupting
purple
this
means,
this
I'm on
computer
vacation.
internet access,
Yeah.
which is why I'll be running the VPN.
cool, so that should get you guys.
Use SSH.
SSH because it's on like a local, it's on my local
Where am I?
home network,
Yeah.
which is bad.
Where am
Well, I could run a VPN server on the Pi and then have my father set up a VPN tunnel
I?
on the router, and then I can still run.
You could do the same thing.
I have another picture I can put in.
Well, what you would do is you would open up like 4,000 on
Guys.
the router, redirect that to port.
Got any
22
questions?
Port 42. How to do that.
Anything you want to do
I'm
next week?
just saying that running a virtual machine, the sole purpose of connecting to a VPN
Yes,
Anything, Hangman?
is
it's.
I've done
one
Hangman
extra step
before.
now.
it's
It's when people know an answer
Yeah.
and they
you're
won't
just
say
adding
it.
more infrastructure that you got it.
Yes, so then, alright, my second
If I-
idea,
if-
then to basically.
If I don't want to take the
run
time, I'll
a
just say, you know,
If no, push all the changes.
begins with an R and rhymes with
Push all
powder.
changes out.
Like use this, but with a Raspberry Pi. You just
Because-
have it on-
Because I'm like, my Raspberry is connected to a monitor and a storage room.
Oh,
So,
you have it for storage.
well, I have it for storage and it's a monitor. On that monitor.
Yeah.
So the pings all the local weather data, all the local, this, that, I'm running
Probably.
four, or will be running 4 remote. So accessible temperature sensors that I can put. That's why directly to the Raspberry Pi via GPIO ports.
Yeah.
And then from all those, I
Pick
then
two
store
issues for it.
information and then store it there, but then
Yeah.
I then display that
Please.
on the monitor along with,
Together.
as
Hmm?
then I also
Read it
have
together,
storage
together.
array.
SSH would be the way to go.
So-
We'll make access
Together.
easier. SSH
Well,
by default lets you do
Yeah, I put
SFTP,
like two.
which will make that.
Exactly.
We got a
Oh,
doc.
jeez. Or you using RAID 0? What's your RAID config?
Yeah, 'cause you can-
As of right now, I will eventually upgrade it to RAID, but currently I
Yeah.
have a 4 terabyte
Last year.
hard drive,
Ops when we did all the
and a
stuff on
250 gig SSD,
Um,
which should be fine for like
I would like to.
storing like
do things.
VM images and like documents. Like, no, I don't.
Even
need
if it's just
that, like,
finding one.
And 50 gig of
Putting it in
SSD. I don't need
Put in a URL.
I need saying
You should put the
security.
URL. You should put a copy of the document. Because
remote ones that support
this
I'm not
document
doing that on-
wholesheartedly stolen
Yes,
from,
I can't.
and then in case the URL.
Yeah, so
Super slow.
I had a URL go away,
on your Raspberry Pi, set up
It
an
was,
SSH, set up SSH.
how to draw
open
that
as a
screen. But
You're gonna.
So I was gonna
need
use it when you said,
configurations. You
please
have
erase your
lots of group
masterpiece. I was gonna say,
Or-
example.
config- You're gonna need to modify FSTAB.
We're done.
Your, F table.
If you, yeah, I can tell we're done when everybody starts talking and I don't stop
So
them.
you can access it.
You don't stop them. But I think we do have to say
Do
something.
that. And then
Yes, Josh?
that disable, prohibit.
Cool.
access and HTTPs and not passwords.
I found a weird thing. Yeah, basic, yeah, but basic, but the security.
Yeah.
If you want,
It'll like-
if you fully
Cut out
buy
my-
the requirement for modifying your
It'll like-
table, your port forwarding table.
A second ago, when I
You
put
can
my
expand
camera,
it.
it goes completely black out.
And connect to it via Tor.
Like I could cover
Oh.
the camera, and the screen is.
Was that
This
you in the meeting when you did that? Maybe, but it wasn't showing
You can.
video,
Report you want.
like it wasn't showing a picture of you, and then it like. Weird. Maybe the camera was on though.
Forwarding port. It just opens up a rendezvous address. So when
Yeah.
you use your URL name to generate on your laptop, you can just connect to that.
Yeah, I was vague about that because I forgot something.
That then just work. Well,
So that's not what
Work
happened
that
at all.
without work forward. Does it like
So-
Randy?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of those.
So, the way it's works, you
Yeah.
have your machine and you have another machine you want to access. Like, let's say you're
So
trying to
the
connect to
router-
DuckDuckGo's onion
Route should
intersection, right?
adapt.
They
that
have
router
their
down.
own Tor circuit. The way Tor circuit works is that you get a guard
And
circuit.
so that's
that
what I
gets
couldn't
a
remember.
middleman, that gets,
if it
gets your
put-
exit, and it's
it
encrypted
put-
through the.
Exactly.
I don't think routers
That's
like
at the end is
beyond
the
the
rendezvous,
messages.
and that's what
They're
you're
not,
trying to
I don't
get
think
to.
they have to come back on the
So
same.
what you do is you go. Access through,
There's a whole
which then will give you a
translation
guard
process.
that then builds your
They're
server.
not going
Yeah.
through the same.
So once you've built your
Yeah,
server.
yeah, I think,
It's a lot more complex.
Well,
That's the simplistic.
yeah,
And the exchange happens there.
Gotcha.
And then the circuit is complete, allowing you to.
well, from
conduct
the
some of
original
that.
router,
You don't know where the
Yeah.
heck they are.
and then the router is keeping track of if this
Because
thing
there's
comes
6
back on
machines
port
fully encrypted.
4287,
Yeah,
it really needs to
It's
go
basically-
to
it's basically,
that guy on
yeah, one server
30.
job is.
4287, yeah, on 380, well, not too low,
I'm here
3856.
Meaning,
Yeah.
your beacon, no.
But I don't think
your
it
beacon, entire
wraps,
circuit,
like,
your-
the second
They know
router's IP,
everything
third
about it.
router's IP.
Yeah,
I think it just comes
they
back
actually
and follows the
very
route.
easy-
And subnets,
they can- as long as you-
subnets can
Good.
be the source of really baffling problems
Yeah,
because
so it
like
builds the circuit.
if
The nice thing about it is the bypass.
If the routers
It doesn't
don't-
bypass
don't agree on the size of the subnet,
bypass-
one router could
Because
think that
you're
router's on my
connecting to another
subnet, the other router might think
And
it's
it
not
happens
on my
all-
subnet. It's no, it's like, I'll send you the ping, but you're not sending it back, right? And so I'll send you the packet, you're not gonna send it back, and if there's another, not another route back to me, you're like, I don't know, I don't know what the problem
Opens
is.
to
Yeah,
TCP.
Yeah, and I don't know
and
if it
the way
shows
the
up as
connection
not
there,
routable,
it sends
I
people
think it's,
back where you send data.
so that's where we need
All intents and purposes, it's just a
Do you-
really
do you like
complex TCP.
order gateway protocol.
That's what it has to be. It's a really complex TCP.
So you said
Yeah.
you're doing big stuff, but do you, have you done network stuff?
I've done just enough like
I don't.
Amazon
I use it.
and stuff and had enough of an interest in it. It's
Security-
an actual job.
security.
Like, I didn't, like I
So that's.
I came up.
Sure,
off the
dad
desktop.
also probably make it. Then you have the.
That's a good path, I think.
Working with people, jobs or
Yeah.
after
Yeah,
that,
yeah. Yes, that's always that biggest issue.
Yeah.
That like you also that's like using a
software
well,
package.
good software and viruses So that way, all these big connections on to only if this guy was like packaging, saying it was that. And so it wasn't. Wow, this it's really packaging my size.
So one thing I will say, it's actually got Tor is going to find like 3 megabits per second. So you're not going to be doing any like easy downloads across the socket. It gives you very easy. That's just you don't see
You write like assembly language, and you
Yeah.
put it in the side.
Look at what's
As a joke.
It's
Yeah, no, it's like.
it's handled over like that. Because then you can just set up a very dirty exporting system. And
I
then
mean,
we handle
what
like
do you do the automation?
Well,
Then
so
it's
there's
just-
a center system, right?
Right.
A lot of those.
So, yeah,
the old way.
what we'll do I don't
Right,
actually
that's
know
right.
this. My guess is that it tells
Oh,
you
so I
like
see. So,
if
I
something
see.
happens.
So you weren't writing
this key.
I wasn't
Don't
developing
from
this
scratch.
You
were- yeah, Gotcha.
Or is it?
Yeah, man, for the
Still
build
get
process,
so-
too. So like, you know, like, that's not
Sure.
just.
I don't actually know this. I think it might. I don't know if the authentication is happening on the exit.
So was there some code that allowed
I
you
don't know where
to get
that
that
is
to
doing
one?
it.
That was the
So it
upside.
makes sense.
Oh, so on the side. I never.
Well, through just the same.
That's great data.
The nice thing was by different socket. Really,
Look at the upside technology.
It runs better this way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I know I can
do
use
that.
they do some of it in PowerShell, but in PowerShell in AWS, because of something it has to do, it's end up having to name the desired state configuration. Have you seen the desired state configuration? Yeah, that was like I'd never really used like Def these things in Linux. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, that was kind of fun. It's like telling me it's supposed to look like a but I didn't like the fact that I had to compile just intermediary.
Yes.
It's just a weird thing to do.